The Curse of Route 17, a stretch of highway tucked away in the outskirts of southern Nevada. It's a road you won't find on most maps, a road whispered about in hushed tones among locals. They call it the Devil's Vein. On a chilly October evening, Amelia James found herself driving along this infamous route. Amelia wasn't from around here. She was a journalist, chasing a lead for her next big story. Local legends, cursed roads, missing people, it was her bread and butter. But tonight she wasn't chasing the story. The story was chasing her. It all started when Amelia stopped at a rundown gas station earlier that evening. The old man behind the counter had stared at her with hollow eyes. "You're not planning to take Route 17, are you?" he asked. Amelia smiled, dismissing his concern. "I've driven worse roads," she said confidently, pocketing her change. He leaned in closer, his voice a low rasp. "The road doesn't care how good you are. Just remember, whatever you do, don't pick her up." Amelia frowned. "Pick who up?" she asked. The old man didn't answer. He just shook his head and muttered, "God help you." Hours later, Amelia found herself alone on the road. Her only company, the endless expanse of trees on either side. The mist had grown thicker, swallowing the moonlight, and her headlights barely pierced the gloom. She glanced at her watch. Midnight. Just as her anxiety started to creep in, her headlights illuminated a figure up ahead, a woman, standing by the roadside, her head bowed, her long black hair hiding her face. Amelia's heart skipped a beat. She remembered the old man's warning, but the sight of the woman barefoot, shivering, and alone was impossible to ignore. Amelia slowed the car, rolling down the passenger window. "Are you okay?" she called out. The woman didn't respond. Instead, she lifted her head ever so slightly, her pale, hollow eyes catching the light. Amelia swallowed hard. Against her better judgment, she unlocked the door. "Get in," she said, her voice shaking. The woman slid into the seat without a word. The car filled with the scent of damp earth and something metallic, something like blood. Amelia tried to make small talk, but the woman didn't answer. Her silence was suffocating, her presence unnerving. "Where are you headed?" Amelia asked, forcing a smile. Finally, the woman turned her head. Her voice was a whisper, soft but chilling. "Home." "And where's that?" Amelia pressed, glancing at her pale, lifeless hands. The woman smiled faintly. It wasn't a kind smile. "Just keep driving," she said. The radio had been off, but now it screamed her name, over and over. Amelia fumbled with the dial, her pulse racing. "Turn it off," the woman hissed, her tone sharp and commanding. Amelia obeyed, her hands trembling. The silence that followed was worse. It wasn't just quiet, it was oppressive, heavy, like the air itself had turned against her. As Amelia drove, the landscape around her seemed to change. The trees warped, their branches stretching toward the car like skeletal hands. The mist thickened, clinging to the windows. And then, the woman began to hum. It was a soft, mournful tune that sent chills down Amelia's spine. What are you humming?" Amelia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she turned her head slowly, her eyes now black as the void. "Do you want to know where I'm from?" she asked, her voice echoing unnaturally. Amelia couldn't speak. Her throat felt tight, her hands frozen on the wheel. The car shuddered to a halt, the engine silencing itself as if it, too, was afraid. "What's happening?" Amelia stammered, her breath visible in the freezing air. The woman tilted her head, her expression unreadable. "We're here," she said. Amelia looked around. There was nothing but darkness and mist. "Here? Where's here?" The woman smiled again, that terrible smile, the place where it all ends. Amelia ran, her heart pounding like a drum. The whispers followed her, growing louder, more insistent. She turned to look back, but the woman was no longer in the car. She was standing on the road, her figure barely visible through the mist. "You shouldn't have stopped," the woman called out, her voice now layered with othersmen, women, children, all speaking in unison. "You brought this upon yourself." The whispers drew her to the house, its windows like empty eyes staring into her soul. She didn't want to go inside, but her feet moved on their own, as if compelled by an unseen force. Inside, the air was colder, heavier. The walls were lined with photographs, dozens of themol of Amelia. Her stomach turned. "How?" she began, but her voice was drowned out by laughter. The woman was standing in the doorway, her face no longer human. "The curse needed someone new," she said, stepping closer. "Now it's your turn. They say Route 17 is just a road, but roads remember, and sometimes they demand a toll. So, the next time you find yourself on a desolate highway, remember this. Some passengers aren't meant to be picked up. Have you heard of the cursed Route 17? Tell us your thoughts below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay off the wrong roads."